This is Katie, co-host of Coffee with Keith and Katie. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Liz Colburn, host of The Morning Uplift here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come back and check out my show, The Morning Uplift, where we talk about finding your beauty in the journey. A new show comes out twice a month on the first and third Mondays. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of The Morning Uplift. Thank you again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome to Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy, and you probably are too. This is Elisabeth, and I'm here today with Emily and Lindsay, and we have a bit of a special episode here for you today. I'm sure a lot of you know that C2E2 just happened over this past weekend, and there was a lot going on there. Lots of events, lots of stuff going on, cosplays, photo op opportunities, meet and greets. So Lindsay got to go with a press pass and represent Beauties and Headcanons. So we're just going to sit down and talk a little bit about her experience there, maybe how it compares to her experience at Anime Milwaukee and what all she got to do there.
But C2E2 is kind of a very different beast than Anime Milwaukee is. It is in Chicago, and so I had a hour and 30-minute drive or so, but people drive from all over the place to come. And a lot of times with conventions, you come, you get a hotel room, you stay the whole weekend, and I didn't do that. I actually looked for a hotel or something that I could find, and of course they were like all booked out. McCormick Place is a rather busy venue. Within walking distance, I couldn't find a single hotel for under $200. So I decided not to do that. We stayed at my sister's house and we ended up going as early as we could on Saturday morning. And this is the first time I've ever been to a comic convention, one where like celebrities that I know, celebrities that I'd be interested in seeing were at. And it was very interesting for me because it's like a flea market on steroids. There's a huge exhibit hall and everyone is selling their wares from everything to anything. There's still an artist alley. So that's one of the similarities between MP and C2E2 is that there was an artist alley. The artist alley is like ginormous. It's huge. And there's all kinds of different artists. So I ended up purchasing a couple of prints from an artist who actually uses canvas and acrylic paint. And he makes figures of comic characters, superheroes, and then turns the canvas on its side so that he can make movement. So that then all of the paint sort of drips down and turns into this really cool piece of art. And I purchased a couple of prints from him, but you can always see, people who will do commission art. So some people will draw, some of the convention goers. There's lots of illustrators, and they are usually selling all sorts of different parts of their work, the different writers of comics, and then people who have drawn them, people who have had some kind of part in producing the work. And the cool thing about Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo, C2E2, is that there's a multitude of all different fandoms represented, which is what I was kind of really excited about. Doing this show and recently, attributing myself to being a geek or nerd or whatever it is we are anyways. But you can decide if you're going to describe to a certain fandom. And, we could talk all day about which ones we really think are our fandoms and which ones aren't. But what I loved the most is that you don't have to just be part of any comic fandom. So there was Star Wars represented and Harry Potter represented and
That's
Supernatural represented and Doctor Who,
That's
Sherlock, Marvel, DC, everything was there. I mean, for those of us that are older, there was, labyrinthine type stuff. So you could see people dressed up as Sarah.
Yeah, you never know.
You don't often see someone dressed up as David Bowie's Goblin King, but I mean, that could change any day.
I think they're afraid that they won't fill out the codpiece like he
There's
can.
only so many people could really wear those pants. I agree.
Exactly.
But what's so exciting about being in a group of people like that is that people have some kind of preconceived notion that like geeks and nerds are antisocial, don't like to hang out with other people. And this is the kind of event where you realize how many people are your people. Back when C2E2 started, it was in 2010. So this was the 9th year, and it was about 20,000 to 30,000 people. And it's about 4 times that now. So they haven't reached 100,000 yet. The numbers aren't really in from obviously 2019 or even 2018. The last time they actually checked, it was 4 times that. So 80,000, 90,000 people. So I'm sure it's at 100,000 now. I had to park my car on the street with Aurelia. There are all these people walking from where they had to park their cars on the streets of Chicago with various parts of their cosplays in disarray.
Nice.
Aurelia and I had to grab some food at McDonald's, and there was a gentleman standing right next to me who was in full cosplay for Kingpin. And there's so many different diverse people that attribute to this kind of a convention that I was so excited to see. And I know I felt that way in Milwaukee as well. So it's not that it was so amazing. You know, we know we're a diverse group of people, but I just loved that you knew who was going to the same place you were going to. Aurelia and I were a little bit lost, and my iPhone was telling me to turn around and walk opposite of where I knew the building was that I was supposed to be going to. And she kept saying, well, why aren't you listening to it, Mom? And I told her, you know, we're just going to follow these people in front of us who are obviously also going to the same place we're going. And of course it was because the girl in front of us was wearing a blue wig. And Aurelia's like, nobody just wears a blue wig, Mom. And I was like, well, I mean, they could if they really wanted to, but okay, you're right. We'll follow them. This was the first time I've ever been to a convention where I spent a whole lot of money to meet someone who I truly admire. Aurelia and I spent...
I was so excited for you guys.
Much more money than we should have to get a 30-second picture with David Tennant. And Aurelia told me she wasn't fangirling, but I am telling you right now, they pushed us into this little area where we were going to do the picture, and he was, you know, obviously standing where the pictures are taken, and she walked right up to the yellow line to stop and wait.
Absolutely. And
the grin on her face in the picture is epic. She is just elated, and she I think I heard her squeal. But I'm not 100% sure. We had to put all of our stuff, you know, any of the packages or bags that you don't want in the picture, you put them out in this other room so you can pick them up right when you leave. But it was so quick. It was literally 30 seconds at the most. I heard him talk, and it was like surreal. It was so surreal. Because you hear David Tennant's voice come out of this guy who's got his arm around you and your daughter, and you're just like
looking into me. Like, right? Like, oh.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's so cool about this is, like, you know, there were a lot of guests at C2E2 this year. There was Amy Jo Johnson and John Barrowman, Paul Rudd. They had a whole lot of Marvel people, some Agent Carter type people, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And, you know, you only really pay attention to the people that you would have maybe wanted to see if you were drowning in money and drowning in time. Because it's not a quick process. They have you stand in line for an extended period of time, and you, even though you've already bought your ticket ahead of time, you have to stand in line with all the rest of these people. And you literally get 30 seconds. So the picture is wonderful and amazing, especially with someone that you idolize, you know, someone that you really respect and think are just amazing actors, which of course is how I feel about David Tennant. So I think it was interesting because I had a friend actually who, so he was dressed as David Tennant's doctor, and at this point in time, he actually didn't have the coat, but he ended up buying the coat at the convention with us. And he also purchased an autograph. So he stood in a lot of lines on Saturday. The thing is, you go to these conventions and I kind of expected it to be a real quick experience. You go for the memories and for that opportunity, but it almost sort of seemed like he was disappointed that he had so little time to even like get his bearings. They literally like take a picture of you and send you on your way. I heard him say hello or hi or goodbye or thank you to me and my daughter, and that was it. Yeah. Like to hear his voice come out of him was enough for me, but that's really all I was expecting. And I think it was interesting to expect any more than that at something like this. You are so excited to meet these people that have like brought characters to life in our lives that have meant so much to us. And I think this is what's really important about sci-fi and fandoms. A lot of times when you have a show that you really watch, it's because you connect to something about the show. I, of course, love David Tennant, so I watch everything that I've had a chance to see him in, and my favorite characters he's played have always been someone that I could connect to a little differently or connect to more intimately. And I've been thinking about this a lot because I wanted to really focus on what was so cool about spending so much money to get a 30-second experience with someone I admire. And I feel like it centers a lot around being able to appreciate an actor who has been able to bring something in their experience in their lives to you and to connect to you in that way. And that's something that people do as well when they're like, if you are a big fan of a comic or an author or something like that, even, in these huge exhibit halls, there's so much opportunity to purchase different artwork. There's so many people who have all of their renditions of superheroes and different characters from anime or manga or their own characters that they've created on display. And what really decides if you purchase that metal imprint of that superhero over here, or if 7D tables down and on the other side of the exhibit hall you also see another rendition of the same superhero, but they are in a crouching position instead. What makes it that you purchase that one instead of that one? And I think it has a lot to do with connecting to that artist's work,
sure,
whatever that work might be. And it's really like just touched me, this whole experience, because if I had the opportunity, I wouldn't buy everybody's work. I'd have no space on my walls. But that artist's work that I did purchase, he was super nice. He had some of his original canvases on display, and Aurelia was looking at it and she's like, oh, how does he do that? And I had her come up real close with me, and I was like, well, if you look, it's literally acrylic paint. It's a canvas with acrylic paint on it. And she was like, oh, and I was like, you can see the pools of paint, Aurelia. And it was really exciting to me to see that, because I was able to kind of like connect with him on that level. And of course he talked with Aurelia and talked with me, and the trick was trying to decide exactly what pieces I wanted to purchase. But I felt that way at every table, every place I went.
Yeah.
There was a woman who was making necklaces, and she had all these different necklaces on display, and they weren't, amazingly handmade or anything, but they were different beads and different things that she had to put together to represent whatever it was she was trying to get at. So I got a necklace that was for the 12th Doctor, and she ended up getting a Ravenclaw necklace. But all of those different charms were put on separately. Yes, she's convinced she's Ravenclaw.
Nice.
It was also pretty funny because I had met up with that friend of mine who I've known for a very long time. And, we don't talk about this nerdy, geeky stuff because when him and I were good friends, I wasn't really into it. You know what I mean? Like, he read a lot of Star Wars books and I kind of was along for the ride. I was just trying to get through high school, honestly. And he mentioned to me while we were walking around, because my daughter's known him her whole life too. She was like, "Oh yeah, so I'm a Ravenclaw," and he kind of looked at me and he was laughing and he's like, "Well, he told me what house he is. He's convinced he's a Gryffindor." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's definitely true. You're definitely a Gryffindor." And then I asked him, "Well, what am I?" And he was like, "You're a Hufflepuff." Instantaneously. And I was like, "Well, yeah, but is it that obvious?" Like,
Hey, Hufflepuffs are awesome. Hufflepuffs are awesome. You get Tonks in your house. Tonks and Cedric Diggory.
You sound like such a Hufflepuff right now. I love it.
I know. Okay.
It's a compliment. Yes. Exactly. Hufflepuff is great. And like, I connect with
Well,
Hufflepuffs.
and that's
though,
one thing
like,
too that I was that I thought was interesting,
like
because
I'm a
Aurelia,
Hufflepuff,
says
at
she's a
least half the
Ravenclaw,
time.
and I'm pretty sure her dad is a Gryffindor as well. So okay, cool, no problem. On any given week, I can take a test or kind of alternate between whether I'm a Ravenclaw or a Hufflepuff any given week. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, well, and it's also like it's about the like you appreciate the wit of things and
Mm-hmm.
and
Definitely.
the logistics and that sort of stuff too.
Well, and so one of the really cool things that I've had the opportunity to do, and I didn't really get a chance to go to very many panels at all. I went into one improv panel, and I really wanted to make sure I got a picture with David Tennant, let's be honest. But being on the floor and seeing everyone's cosplays was really important to me. I wanted to make sure that I had a lot of time to see all of that and to really be around my people, because sometimes you forget that this is something other people that are just like you also enjoy doing. So I really had a good time doing that, but there were some awesome concepts in the panels that really sounded like a lot of fun. And, they were like any multitude of discussions we could have here on Beauties and Headcanons. They were things that I could see talking about with my nerdy friends at a table. I mean, any amount of topics you can think of having to do with, the wit and the logistics of things that we love. They had a panel for it. So of course, if I had more time and maybe a couple of duplications of myself, I would have really enjoyed being able to go into those. And if I didn't have my 11-year-old daughter with me, maybe in a few years when she's older, I'll send her out with a credit card or something. No, that's a bad idea. Yeah.
Maybe like a prepaid.
I wouldn't send myself out with a credit card, so. Yeah, with a limit, definitely.
Yeah. What you really need is this. Yeah, there you go. And you just need a time turner though too, so you can send yourself back a certain amount of time and make sure you
when I
avoid
think
your
about
other
it, there's a lot of
past selves.
television lately that centers around going back and changing time, and when they see themselves in whatever sequence of events that they're going back to try and change, they everything always goes bad. And I feel like shouting at them, everyone knows you're not supposed to see yourself in the past. What are you doing? Haven't you ever watched anything?
I know.
Don't you know this is a bad
I think about to it. Like,
you
really?
can't talk to yourself.
Have you not like experienced
It's just not a good
before?
idea. Nothing good ever comes of meeting yourself in the past. You just can't do it. And anyone who's any good fangirl or boy knows that. Let's be serious. I have recently started listening to David Tennant's podcast. He does a podcast every Monday night called David Tennant Does a Podcast With, and then the other person says their name. And it's wonderful and amazing. And I thought it was interesting because my friend who was also there with me this weekend, he felt like David Tennant had been very rushed. Of course, he had 3 photo sessions, 1 autograph session, and Matt Smith had canceled. So I was actually in line to see, we had bought a collective ticket for us to see David Tennant and Matt Smith. And I'm pretty sure Aurelia would have not even been able to giggle at that point. She would have just lost her mind. Because she loves Matt Smith. And I'm sure that he canceled for a good reason. So it is what it is. We got our money back.
Of course, yeah.
My friend was able to see John Barrowman and David Tennant, and it was a really cool experience. But I found it interesting to have been there at C2E2 and have seen David Tennant, any celebrity that I would really admire like that, and to have been listening to his podcast recently, because you get a real sense of how people are when you get to see them in person, get to see them under stressful conditions. Obviously, like herds of people coming through just to get a 30-second picture with you, or for you to sign your name in front of them and for you to try with all your might to say something meaningful to them that doesn't sound like something ridiculous, whatever. You could, right. You don't want to say the same thing as everybody else, but you're one of 100, a very large amount of people who are coming through. He's not going to remember you, your name, or anything about you, but you kind of wish he would. You really want to be that person. Especially if you've ever had an experience where you have met a celebrity and you have had a chance to talk with them or get to know them as a person. And I think what's really interesting to me about his podcast is that he literally talks to his friends. He talks to his actor friends. He did an episode with Kristen Ritter, who does Jessica Jones, and you really get a sense of how real these people really are. And, I always kind of wanted to be an actor. So it's interesting to me to know how, to get a sense of how real everyone is and how humble and how just awesome. He had a podcast where he talked with Olivia Colman, and she's just an amazing actress. I just adore her. And Karen Tate, he did a podcast with her, and she's just so real and funny and not crass. I don't want to say crass, but just, she's everything you imagine she would be, in a 50-minute podcast of the two of them talking. Yeah. And Kristen Ritter really surprised me because she talks about how, awesome. Just how grassroots she really is. She started out in her hometown in the United States, and she was approached by a modeling agency in a mall at some point in time. And she actually started out modeling and then started doing commercials, and then decided she wanted to do acting, and was excited about that because it was really something that she was in charge of, that she had all control over her creative voice in that aspect, because when you're modeling, you have to really do what you're told. And so I thought it was kind of cool to hear that evolution from her. But what I love is everyone that he has on the podcast calls him DT. And I just get this sense that I'm in the room with the two of them when I listen to their podcast. And I really wish that was there was more of that. You know, at the convention, you get this sense of how quick and
like
crass and rough everything is. You know, there's so many people, there's so many things that can bring so much anxiety to other people. You know, like there was one point in time where I almost sort of lost Aurelia. There's lots of people moving about, and she wasn't holding my hand yet, and she wasn't really paying attention to me. So a crowd of people went between the two of us, and suddenly I couldn't see her. And, you know, she's 11, and she's pretty, what's the word, resourceful. But I knew she didn't have her phone on her, so I'm instantaneously going through all the ways that I could scream her name loud enough for her to hear me, because she was just there. Where'd she go? And, you know, it's Chicago. So thankfully she saw me and she was right there. So it was no problem. But, you know, I think about those things in situations like that, where there's so many people and there's so many ways that such a cool event can go wrong. You know, these actors and comic book writers and panelists and all these amazing people putting together this huge event, they have all these chances to make memories for the individuals that are at the convention, but there's also all these chances and all these opportunities for things to go wrong. And it's so great when you have a good experience at a convention like this, because it was enormous. For Anime Milwaukee, I had to go to some separate room in some separate hotel to pick up my press pass. And my directions with C2E2 were a little bit vaguer. I was given the code on my email, and I just figured I'd wing it at registration. So we got in there, and this guy at there's a line going to the right, and there's this guy that underneath the sign that says exhibitions or exhibitors. And I was like, yeah, sure. He like waved me over, and I was like, but I'm not an exhibitor. And he's like, it's okay, I can check in over here. I was like, oh, okay, sure. So I go up there, and I was like, well, I have a press pass, and I bought my daughter a 3-day pass. And he was like, oh, okay, well, do you have an ID with you? And I handed him my ID, and sure enough, he was able to just check me in. And then he checked in Aurelia too, which I thought was also awesome. And it was just like, you know, the little things that went right were the best part of the whole time. Aurelia got the opportunity to see a lot of like professional cosplayers, people who have won awards from the Singer Sewing Company, like Singer, the actual sewing machines, and just like people who have their hashtags and tag me in this picture, and just like a community of people who really have the opportunity to take things real seriously about their fandoms, but also are really having a great time with it too. And you see so many different renditions of characters, and I mean, I'm still not comfortable with the idea of me cosplaying, and that's what I think is so interesting. I had the opportunity to, you know, cosplay as I could have put together a 13th Doctor cosplay. I could have bought a leotard. No, I wouldn't have worn it, but you know, I could have done something. And I just really wanted to go as myself. So I put on my Talk Nerdy to Me t-shirt and went, and I just thought it was so much fun to be around so many different people who connect with all these different fandoms, and I had the opportunity to like honor what they love and be able to appreciate what other people love too.
If you were to go again, what are some things that you would plan ahead for? Or
so C2E2 has a really cool, and a lot of conventions now will have a really cool app that you can download on your phone. and map out what you want to attend, and it can actually send you notifications and stuff as to
that's beautiful.
what's coming up and
That's really
what
helpful.
you've signed yourself up to. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
So I was getting really
like
cool notifications about
awesome.
panels that I had told myself were interesting, and things like that. So I would definitely want to schedule which panels I wanted to go to. And I'd even, schedule them and just drag my daughter along and make sure she comes too. And you could do that with the pictures and the autograph sessions as well. So all of those different events were able to be scheduled into this app. So you could really schedule out your entire weekend.
That's
would
cool.
Definitely plan ahead and get a hotel. Sometimes these conventions are open on Fridays, and sometimes it's just a Saturday, Sunday thing. But C2E2 is a Friday thing. So, I mean, it doesn't sound like Friday would be an important day to come, but they have a lot of really cool panels. And there was some really fun stuff that centered around comic books and bringing comic books into the classroom. So they had some really cool
that would be
opportunities
awesome.
for teachers to learn more about how to bring comic books into the classroom, how to engage children and young adults in a different way, with different opportunities to learn. And there's also a lot of psychology and ethics and information that you can really draw from science fiction and the comic book world that they really centered around. Some of the panels that I would have wanted to go sit in would have made me sound like a real nerd because I really wanted to go to them. So I would have definitely planned all of that out. I really loved that we were able to meet David Tennant, even if it was for 30 seconds. I would have loved to have maybe met, well, obviously I wanted to meet Matt Smith, and I'll admit, like, there weren't a whole lot of other people that I would have wanted to meet. A few years ago, C2E2 had Stan Lee, and I have a lot of friends who had pictures with him, and they were very, like, it almost kind of looked like Stan Lee was a cardboard cutout. And that's kind of how I felt about David Tennant's picture with me and Aurelia too. Like, I know he put his arm on her. I know it was him. But it was such a boxed look, he was smiling. He looked great, but that was kind of the same thing from Stan Lee too. But I feel like the opportunity to be in the presence of greatness like that, I don't know, that's really, it's a really special feeling. So I really would have, I definitely would make sure that I meet someone I admire and get that opportunity as well. And of course I always need to support local art. So I made sure that I purchased a couple of pieces of artwork, and I know a local comic book writer as well. He's local to me. I'm pretty sure he lives in Michigan or something, but he comes to some conventions in Milwaukee and the Chicago area. And my daughter loves his like main book series that he just finished up the 4th book on. So, and I'm friends with him on Facebook. So I made sure that I knew where he was going to be and that Aurelia got the 4th book. So she got a 4th book signed by him and the illustrator. It was just a really cool thing to make sure that, like, I love to support local art and artists and people that are out there doing their thing. So I would always make sure that I saved up enough money to purchase the things that I wanted to be able to support the great artists and actors and
all those creators that take the time to sit there in the booth at a convention. Like, even from that perspective, like, if I were to go to a convention and have a booth there, I would be itching to just wander around and leave my booth.
Not inexpensive
like,
to get.
I don't know if I could stand it. Yes.
So
Oh yeah.
I know in their minds they're like, okay, I have
like
to sell at least this much product just to like break even on what I spent to have this booth at this place at this time. So,
Exactly.
So that's got to be a lot of pressure. So that's really awesome. Like just being able to like be there and meet the artists personally and support them. Because I mean, we can look at artists selling their art on like Facebook or Etsy or anything like that. But to actually like go there and meet the artists like personally, that is just like I just love it. I love the idea. Like it really makes me want to go to a convention, but I don't really have a whole lot of options in my area, unfortunately.
But what always just floors me is these people that are out there creating art and putting themselves out there with their wares, with their different books that they've produced and prints and all of that stuff. Like even beyond how much money they do have to make in order to make the trip worth it, to make the convention worth it. I love that they have the ability, the opportunity to show what they're creating and putting out into the world. I struggle with like existentialism, and if I've done enough in the past 33 years to be remembered if somehow I was gone tomorrow. And I don't want to be sad about it, like I don't mean it that way, but I think it's really amazing that there are so many people out there that are talented and able to put their talent to good use and to use their hands, their voices, their acting, their whatever they have to be able to contribute and put themselves out into the world and really, make an impact, whatever that impact may be.
Yeah. No, that is really cool. And I actually, locally to me, 2 weekends ago was Emerald City Comic Con. And so I was seeing all these, from Batman, who we interviewed a while back. He went to that, of course. And so I was seeing all these posts on Instagram from him. And I'm like, oh, I really should have gone. And like, it wasn't even really on my radar. And now, like, I think we have Ace Comic Con coming up in June. In Seattle again, or somewhere nearby me, and I would really love to try and plan ahead, but I'm gonna be super pregnant then, so we'll see. I'll be like 38, 39 weeks pregnant by that point, so I don't know if that's gonna be very good at a convention.
Yeah, the only one that's really in my area is going on in Raleigh, but with a special needs 3-year-old, I don't think it's going to be very feasible to attend, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And it's going to be different for everyone too. And hopefully you'll be able to go to something someday, but you just got to kind of keep your eyes open for opportunities.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for getting nerdy with us today. And thank you, Lindsay, for sharing your awesome sounding experience at C2E2. Did I say that right? C2E2? Mm-hmm. Yay. Okay. I'm really glad you had such a really good experience. And I'm just so excited to like pick my first convention and actually go to one, because every time I hear about them, I'm more and more convinced that I just need to go. I just need to plan, save up, go, do it, and super excited to do that, for even if it's just me and my husband, or maybe we could bring the whole family. I don't know. We'll figure something out. I think it'll be really fun. As always, be sure to check out the store. We have awesome merch. It was just on sale this past weekend, so I don't know if there's going to be another sale coming up, but you got to check it out. All right, and with that, I am Emily.
I'm Elisabeth.
And I'm Lindsay. And thanks for getting nerdy with us today on Beauties and Headcanons.